Hey there, YouTube. It's Fragments of Memory one more time. And I just wanted to continue my armchair philosophy rant. So far we know Laura Ingraham has or is blinded to her white privilege. She does not have to deal with the problems and the woes of the minority group, i.e., she doesn't have to worry about things like redlining, which was a practice where banks would take a map of the city and redline the area. And when a certain type of clientele would enter, i.e., black clientele, would enter to the bank to get a loan, they would say, oh, you're in that district where we really don't give loans because you're too much of a risk. So they would redline certain areas in the map, section things off. You also have things such as racial profiling. A police officer, and I've been stopped by the police walking down the street, where the police will stop me and say, oh, I'm sorry, young man, you fit the description. You know, we've been having a lot of burglaries in the area, and you don't look like you fit in this area. So let's talk to you for a minute. Let's see if you've got something on you. Or my personal favorite, the mall. Let's go to the mall. And the mall clerk would stop you and constantly follow you around and ask you, hey, do you need any help? Hey, man, do you need any help? Even though they ask you that 5 seconds, every 5 seconds. So I've been in situations like that, and that's tough, and I've dealt with that. So I go back to my mother's comment about you having one strike against you, you being black. Well, hell, I know that from experience now, but back then I couldn't. My mother, what's she talking about? And I realized that many whites don't have to go through this. They don't have to go through redlining or racial profiling or being stopped in the mall by security or the store clerk or whatever the case might be. Now, there is racism in St. Louis in things like white flight. Whites move from one area and then move to another area. There's things like gentrification where we'll take a blighted area and then renew it, which great on the surface, but you disenfranchise a lot of people and they can't go and rebuild that. Now, I look at that and I just pause and I go, it's sort of strange when these people come on and say, we should have a colorblind society. Everything should be equal. Every man should work and just get the fruits of his labor from the sweat of his brow. And that sounds nice and that sounds ideal and that sounds wonderful, but we know that is not the truth. That is not a reality. There's another thing that my mother instilled in me growing up. My mother never wanted me to grab the white toy. She would, or if I got a white action hero, she wanted me to get a black equivalent. I just snapped the CD case there. And same thing with my sister. If my sister had a white Barbie doll, she'd find a black Barbie doll or a black baby or a black character to try to say, hey, this is what you are. This is who you are. So many whites, due to their privilege, don't have to deal with that. They don't have to deal with almost being a non-entity or being seen as a non-entity. Sometimes I go to this spot in the Central West End of St. Louis, and it is a spoken word thing. And one of the poets, one of the MCs there, Black Falcon, who was amazing. If you haven't seen Black Falcon and you're in the St. Louis area, go see this guy. He is awesome. And the one thing he said was how, excuse my language, niggas want to be seen because it seems nobody doesn't think we exist. So we got to shout the loudest. We got to dress the flyest. We got to bling it out. We got to grandstand because we need to be seen. We need to be acknowledged. We need to be known that we are here, that we are real. And I thought about that. And then again, back to my mother's wisdom, she said just things that she's told me where if you're black, you have to speak more intelligent than the white person. If you're black, you have to make better grades than the white student. You have to dress neater. You have to brush your teeth a little bit better. You have to look better than the white student. Not because we're anti-white, but because we realize that we're going to be under more scrutiny than the white student. We're going to be under more scrutiny than our white counterpart. It happens all the time. Because even Chris Rock talked about how he lived in a great neighborhood, a wonderful neighborhood. And he said, I'm a stand up comic. I'm a well known, well paid stand up comic and actor and filmmaker. Mary J. Blige lives in my neighborhood, who is an amazing R&B hip hop singer, diva, you know. And then he says there's this white guy that lives in the neighborhood that's a dentist. And he's not the greatest dentist, he's an average dentist. He's not the Jay-Z of dentists. He's just a regular old dentist. How does this regular dentist go, live in this neighborhood? And then Chris Rock came up with the quote, black people have to fly where white people can just walk. And that seems to be what we have to do. If a white person has 20 degrees, or excuse me, 1 degree, that's a bachelor's, I got to have a bachelor's and a master's. If he's got a bachelor's and a master's, I got to have a bachelor's, a master's, and a master's, and a PhD. And if he's got to have a PhD, I got to have a PhD, and I got to be summa cum laude, magna cum laude. I have to have this thing of excellence. And nothing's wrong with excellence, and nothing's wrong with striving for excellence. Go for it. Do it. And if you want to, keep doing it. However, it seems that we are under more scrutiny. We are under more pressure to be excellent, where the white person can just scrape by on being average, or maybe even above average, but not excellent. We have to be excellent just to compete in this system that's supposedly based on meritocracy, which meritocracy is a myth. Anyone who tells you differently, he is either white and privileged and blind to his privilege, or he is a person of color that may do well. And he's that small nth of a percentage that got there by skill and talent. Now, this isn't me advocating for this isn't me advocating for quota programs and so on and so forth. This is me just implying that white privilege exists, that it's still institutional. To say that simply because we elected a president that was black or was biracial, that had black heritage in him, doesn't change the fact that the mentality is still there. That's like putting a black spokesperson up on a company that excluded blacks and say, "Oh, look, we've got blacks. We're not racist." And then, of course, you get into the whole token black thing. Sort of like Juan Williams. People like Jesse Lee Peterson, people like, what's his name, Larry Elder, even Angela McGlowan, or I think Angela McGowan or Angela McGlowan, the politician who's with the Tea Party. She's a token. She's that token we sit out in front and say, "Oh, look, we're not racist. We have black people here. We're not prejudiced. We have a black person." And the black person seems to co-sign on everything the white person says. And they end up just being a shill. And even when I look at people like Michelle Malkin, who is not black, who is actually of Filipino heritage, she is still that shill for the corporate, or excuse me, not the corporate, but the Republican or the conservative wing of things. She's on Fox News saying, "Oh, there's no prejudice. I worked here hard and I got here on my own sweat and my own steam." Granted, you may be intelligent. Granted, you may be good looking. Granted, you may even have talent and skill, and you have the mental and vocal dexterity in order to handle yourself in the political ring and the commentator pundit ring. But you still are that token there to represent whatever agenda is being put out there. So again, but it goes back to the white privilege. It does go back to white privilege. So I think race is one of those hard things, because anytime you imply someone's a racist, everyone gets defensive and then tries to throw the charge back on you. "Oh, you're trying to say I'm racist. Well, black people can be racist too." Well, that's not really the issue. The issue is whatever prejudices or racism or privileges you have, acknowledge that, hey, I'm a privileged person and that I don't live in the same world you do. So let me stop trying to act as though I do. And for now, I've spoken my piece. Thank you for listening. If you are, peace.